What is up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Guarani Vision, the first ever podcast dedicated to Paraguayan football in English. As always, I'm Roberto Rojas, and joining me as always are my great co-hosts, Fede Perez, Maria Britos, and Ralph Hanna. And guys, it's been a while since we actually chat. I mean, obviously, a lot has been going on in the world of football. Obviously, in our Paraguayan game, a lot has been going on, and I'm not over-exaggerating. But a lot has been going on the national team game. Obviously, we're talking literally 2 weeks removed from the last qualifiers that happened in South America. Obviously, a lot happened with the Paraguay national team. We're obviously going to discuss that in our chat today. But, you know, a lot of controversy, a lot of changes, a lot of drama. Also, what's been going on the club game with the first division, you know, getting to the tail end of the season. We only got a few months until the end of the clausura, where we still don't know who might be a champion. Intermedia, we also have some teams that have actually been promoted, so that we'll see them next year in the first division next year. But obviously, we're definitely going to be mentioning what's been going with our national team and talk about what happened in the qualifiers, what happened to a certain manager, and what probably will happen in terms of a future manager for the national team. So let's go straight into it. And I want to go to Fede first, actually, because I think he missed the memo. I think after what's been going on with Paraguay over the last few days, and I think Ralph and Maria and obviously myself kind of got the memo of wearing all black. Fede isn't feeling that way. Maybe there is some sort of optimism with what's going on with the news, but Fede, I mean, how are you, man? And honestly, how have you been able to digest everything that's been going on in the Paraguayan game, especially for the national team over the last few weeks?
If people have been following Guarani Vision ever since we started, they know I'm the one that goes against everybody else's thoughts. You know, I'm gonna always go against everybody. So yeah, I do have, why not, some maybe a little tiny hope still that we can make it to the next World Cup. Who knows? You know, I'm always with my calculator when it has to, when it comes down to the national team with the Albi Roja. I've gotten used to this situation in these last process to the World Cups, road to the World Cups. And unfortunately, we're on that way again, right? We're right there last six games, but yeah, we need to calculate it right there. We need to know what happens with the other teams, and we need to win, which is something we've barely done in this whole process. And that's the reason our coach mainly left, right? And especially because we lost really badly against Bolivia, probably the weakest team in South American football. But yeah, that's our reality. That we're obviously going to talk about that. That's the main subject right now in the Paraguayan football, in our stage here in Paraguay. Hi to everybody, Roberto. It's awesome to be back again for another episode. We got so much ahead of us.
Absolutely. And, you know, obviously, let's go to the other co-hosts who are wearing a black. Let's go to Maria first, actually, because I think it kind of feels like double homicide for her, actually, because not just what's been going on with Paraguay and their removal of a coach, the same with Olimpia getting rid of Alvaro Gutierrez, who only had a few games left. And, you know, obviously comes in another Olimpia legend, Julio Cesar Cáceres, as their new manager. It's not looking good for Olimpia. And we've spoken about this for various months at nauseum ever since Guarani Vision really started, and it's just not looking good. So I can't imagine how you've been feeling so far, not just of what's been going on for your national team, but also for the club game as well.
Well, it's been, how do I say, I can't describe it. If I could have dyed my hair in black, I probably would have done it so that I could go with the whole theme of, you know, but it's been terrible, you know, seeing how Paraguay has been playing, you know, and then what happened with Berizzo and then Olimpia, and just knowing what's ahead of them, for them too, just puts me in a very depressive mode. So I kind of just tuned them out, to be honest with you. I tuned them out and I said, maybe next year will be a little better. Our hopes for Copa Libertadores is down the drain, I think, but you know, maybe the season can be saved a little bit, who knows? But with them, I'm just like, I'm done with you for now. I'll just focus on Paraguay just a little bit, but we'll see what happens. Maybe there's a little more hope for Paraguay than there is for Olimpia.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think a lot of Olympia fans kind of feel that same way, that they've had quite a depressive year, you would say. And there are some people that value the club over the national team, maybe those that value both of them at the same time. But ultimately, I think regardless of what happens, it's just been a terrible year for both of them, especially at this point of the stage. And we'll obviously go to Ralph as well. We see a little bit of pink as well on his jersey. Obviously, maybe that pink shows a bit of hope, similar to what Fede is wearing. I'm thinking that's a pink shirt. Just want to make sure. But in any case, maybe that pink hope comes from a bit of twins that apparently are set to be part of the national team, because ultimately, obviously we'll talk about what happened in the national team in their games in the qualifiers, but obviously Pele mentioned the sacking of Eduardo Berizzo, and obviously him leaving, as we kind of mentioned before the start of the show. But maybe there's some sort of hope with these rumors that are coming out. Obviously it's not official, but it seems to me that the FA are still looking to maintain their ideals of going for an Argentine coach, and in particular for twins in this case. And obviously, we'll talk about who those twins are, but it feels as if though it's desperation for Paraguay at this stage. And typically it doesn't really work out for a lot of national teams aside of maybe Brazil or Argentina. So it's going to be tough to see what happens with Paraguay for the remainder of the qualifiers.
So you're telling me to just get rid of the pink stripes, right? So for those on the podcast, I'm wearing the Inter Miami shirt. So that's the pink 3 stripes on there.
Another team that's not doing so well.
Yeah, exactly. Another team that's not doing great. So there we go.
At least you have Arsenal, I guess. I mean, that's still something.
No. Well, let's talk about one positive quickly before we go into national team chat, which is General Caballero of Juan León Mallorquín. We've already mentioned them on here about the Intermedia, that they got promoted. They're definitely champions now. And that means they're playing Copa Sudamericana next year, which is an incredible achievement. But as we're talking about managers, let's talk about their manager, Humberto Ovelar, who got them promoted, and they were champion. There's still one game to go in Intermedia. But he stepped down, and he said, my promise was always to get them promoted. I've done that. And now he stepped down. And so we have another manager vacancy, but this is a strange one, right? Winning the league.
That's actually a funny story, Rob. Do you know the reason why he actually left?
He mentioned something about renaming the stadium, right? That he wasn't happy with them renaming it.
Yeah, because before it was the name was after his grandfather, which was actually from the same city from this club, and they changed the name right before the season started, and he still agreed with it and went with it. But he said, when the tournament's over, I'm out of here.
Yeah, and so he stayed true to his word. So he gives up the chance to managing Copa Sudamericana next year. But yeah, that's an interesting one. And by the way, the Intermedia all comes to a close on Tuesday. We're recording on Tuesday 19th, Tuesday 26th. It all comes to a close. You still have a couple of teams or a couple of places, that haven't been defined in terms of the last direct promotion and the playoff spot, who will play a team from Primera. So there's about, I think mathematically, there's still like 5 teams that could possibly get those 2 spots. So that's going to be a very exciting midweek action next week.
Absolutely. Obviously, definitely we'll be keeping our eyes and ears open on what's been going on in the league action. Obviously, we'll talk about that in future episodes, but let's shift to what's really been going on. Let's go to the elephant in the room and talk about the national team. As we last spoke, Paraguay were into the qualifiers for the World Cup in Qatar 2022. They had 3 games at their disposal. They played Argentina at home and then traveled to Chile and Bolivia. And a lot of us felt a bit optimistic actually before heading into these games, that Paraguay looked to possibly be in a better situation than they were back in September, and they just fell flat on their face, guys. Looking at the results, a 1-1 draw, a 0-0 draw against Argentina in the Defensores del Chaco, obviously in some sort of positive stake. Obviously, the Copa America champions, they held both them at home and away, that they weren't able to lose.
Our best player was our goalkeeper. Come on.
I mean, hey, you got to take something. A 1-1 draw at La Bombonera, and then a 0-0 draw in Asunción. But obviously, what happened afterwards was when Paraguay fell flat on their face, losing to Chile in Santiago, a game that many people actually came into this matchup thinking that they were possibly, feeling confident of getting a result there. They fell flat on their face, losing 2-0 thanks to goals from Ben Brereton and Marcelo Isla over there at the San Carlos de Apoquindo. And then the game against Bolivia, a result that, Paraguay were desperately needed to get something. They haven't won away in La Paz since 1973. History didn't change itself as they fell flat on their face in one of their worst games in qualifier history, Ralph, actually would say that, losing 4-0 to Bolivia, which ultimately left to the resignation of Eduardo Berizzo after just only 31 games in charge. Obviously, looking at the record here in front of me, 7 wins. Of those 7 wins, 4 were competitive, 2 World Cup qualifiers against Venezuela, and then in the Copa America against Chile and Bolivia, 13 draws and 11 losses, looking at a 37% winning rate, which is absolutely pitiful for Paraguay. And, obviously now as we speak on the 19th, we don't know who is the official new manager. There had been some rumors over the last few days about possibly looking at it locally. There had been some names that have been looking at abroad as well. Some names such as Fernando Jubero, Hernan Rodrigo Lopez, Luis Felipe Scolari, who actually, left Gremio, a Gremio side that has Matias Villasanti, another national team player, Ramon Diaz, who actually coached the national team beforehand in 2015 until 2016. But the name that comes out of this one is Guillermo Barros Queloto, a manager obviously renowned of what we saw at Boca Juniors. He managed at Lanús, won the Sudamericana, also coached at LA Galaxy. But we'll get to him in a bit, actually. But let's talk about what really happened on the pitch, because Fede, I want to go to you actually on this one, because I think Paraguay came into these combo matches with a bit of optimism, and it just did not work out well. Obviously a side that clearly did not demonstrate anything. Berizzo, we had just tried so much to defend him and defend the players that had been on that cell. We obviously criticized him when needed, but ultimately he fell flat on his face, not getting any sort of result, conceding 6 goals in 3 games, and it ultimately led to to him leaving. And Paraguay into the situation now, obviously, as we speak, currently in 8th place with 12 points, 4 points behind Uruguay, who are with 16 points, 4 points ahead of them, but obviously behind likes of Chile and Bolivia. So I don't even know where to begin, Fede. So you might as well take the floor here, because I am at a loss for words. I don't know what to really say about this Paraguay side after what we saw in those 3 games. I'm absolutely disappointed.
Yeah, me too. Obviously, I am disappointed from the staff, from the coaching staff, from the players also, because it is on them too. I think we're going to talk about this also, that it's not just about the coaching staff. It's not just about the players either. It's also about the planification to get to this point. There are people that are supposed to look over the coaching staff's job also, that are supposed to see if they're doing everything well, if they're doing everything correct. And we've had some sort of signals that things weren't going right, and to some people this was eventually going to happen, this kind of meltdown, or see this team really collapse. And collapse meaning not just on the results, but getting no shots at goal. Who wants to play football and not shoot at least once at the target? Once. Who does this? Those small countries, maybe in Europe, when I watch the qualifications there, or I don't know where else in the world, but we're not used to that here. You're supposed to fight the games. You're supposed to try to win games, and we weren't seeing what Berizzo was saying, that his team was supposedly playing. He was talking about, we're gonna have the ball. We didn't have the ball. The other team was having more possession than us. That was happening way more and more frequently lately. And then you had no power attack. You had nothing pretty much when you had the ball, and you barely had the ball. I mean, everything was going down for you, and your principles, your basic ideas that brought you to the national team, he was leaving that aside, and he was just trying to build something, and he wasn't building anything right now. And I've had signals back even in one of the two Copa Americas that he played, that he managed. And I remember that game against Qatar, where we were supposed to be the team that was going to put the pressure on them. And we, in that game, they blew us over. And I was shocked by that, because right there you saw that Berizzo had trouble reading the game. You saw that Berizzo had trouble attacking and putting this team one step forward, not just waiting on the other teams. And lately, what I saw from this team was just a very defensive team that just couldn't handle the ball, that had no attack whatsoever. And it was just painful to watch. Even these last three games, it was just painful to watch. And I thought somebody was gonna see this. I thought somebody was eventually gonna shake him up and tell him all these mistakes that he was doing, picking certain players, the way that he was reading games. I will say that again, because I think that was one of his biggest mistakes as a coach, as a leader, and his decision making. Even on that second game against Chile, I mean, we were supposed to go and win that game, and to put in Hernan Perez, a player that has never brought pretty much anything to the national squad, and in a very important place where in front of him he had Isla, who had a great game and who was probably Chile's best weapon, attacking us on the second half. And they scored. They did the same thing that Ecuador did to us in Quito before. So it was the same mistakes again, not learning from them. And I talked about this before, and he just didn't learn from everything that he lived with our national team. So Berizzo, it's over for you, man. You lost it. You lost your opportunity. Like the players also are losing their opportunity. It's another opportunity that they might lose of going to a World Cup. Tell Tony Sanabria. And I was hitting my head against the wall, thinking about Maria, because Tony, come on. I mean, it was your ball. You just had to put it in there, and took it outside of the stadium. That was crazy, the way that he just shot that ball in a very important moment of the game. And that's just to go back somehow in my thoughts and in everything that we've lived these last couple of days that just been crazy on our national team. I love to hear the rest of the staff.
If we let's look at the whole Berizzo period, I suppose. And there was a moment when Paraguay lost 2-0 to Brazil. Brazil came and really beat Paraguay in Asunción very easily. It was just before the Copa America. And at that moment, I think it was kind of either time for Berizzo to go or to give him a chance. And the chance was to be the Copa America. And I was at that time, there was 6 games Paraguay had played, right? And at that time, I thought, yeah, it's only 6 World Cup qualifiers. I mean, he'd played more games because he'd done another Copa America and friendlies, but 6 World Cup qualifiers. And I thought, I think he still needs a chance. The Copa America came around. I thought Paraguay were quite good in the Copa America. Those problems Fede is talking about being ultra defensive, we didn't see so much. What we saw in the Copa America was maybe conceding. We conceded to Bolivia, we conceded 3 goals to Peru. Maybe it was more a thing about not defending so well, but we found that some balance and we were attacking quite well. So then coming into these 2 triple headers, so not just this one, the one before as well, which is another 6 games of World Cup qualifiers, I felt fairly confident. In both the preview shows we did, I think I was saying 5 points, 7 points from the 3 games, and it just didn't happen. And it got worse, and it got progressively worse. I thought the Argentina game wasn't great, but you could say, okay, it's the Copa America champions, it's one of the best teams around, you're just trying to nullify them. I get that. The Chile game was the game for the taking. Chile were awful. They were awful leading up to all of these games. And really, if anything, Paraguay have given them that break that they needed, because then Chile went on and did well in the game after. But it was all Paraguay helping them, playing into their hands, not attacking them, why have Perez, like Fede is talking about, why have Perez attacking Isla, who's, I don't know how old he's now, 34, 35 or something. Get Julia Enciso, get somebody young, or get Kaku running at him, pegging him back. And then the Bolivia game is awful. To Roberto's point, yes, it's the worst, it's the joint worst defeat Paraguay have ever suffered in the Copa America, sorry, in the CONMEBOL qualifiers. They've lost 4-0 twice before. One was to Colombia in 2001, and the other was the 2016, I guess. We lost 4-0 to Uruguay in Montevideo. So this it's just got worse, and so the time for Berizzo to go was definitely that. And we're talking about the 6 games. So Berizzo had his 6 first games where he's getting into it. His 6 games that have been a disaster, and now he's gone. And now Paraguay have 6 games left to try and get to the World Cup. And it's almost impossible, but the 3 home games are Chile, Ecuador, and Uruguay. It's the 3 direct rivals. Those 3 home games, if they were to win, that puts you in with a chance for sure, because you're going to be taking points off rivals. Of course, it's a 4-point gap at the moment, so they'll rely on other results. But what we also saw in this triple header that was so frustrating was all the teams around Paraguay were dropping points. Like before that Bolivia game, everything was falling into place for Paraguay to make up some ground and not lose 4-0. So I think, Berizzo had his chance. He cannot say he wasn't given a chance. And to Fede's point, he kept making the same mistakes. Paraguay kept conceding goals in the last 15 minutes of games or the last 20 minutes of games. And that's it. It's time for him to go. Now the big question, and I guess we'll find out in these last 6 games, is was it more Berizzo, or is it just the players aren't good enough?
Yeah, like you all said, it's been it wasn't fun to watch them play. And Ralph, you said it right. They had such a good opportunity to make up what they couldn't do in September, and they lost it. It just went down the drain, and it was so frustrating to see, because they really had this good chance to do it. I mean, we played Bolivia. What are they, second to last in the table, I believe? So I don't understand what went wrong in there. At the time, correct? At the time, they were second to last when we played them. But even I believe I saw this interview that was circulating on Twitter about this Bolivian reporter saying, this is our chance to win against this mediocre team, talking about Paraguay. So you see just how bad our Paraguay team has been doing in the eyes of everyone internationally. So it was really just embarrassing. And I think like Fede said, maybe we'll see if it was really Berizzo that made all this possible, or was it really our players? But I also think that there's probably no talking about like the locker room and the players, I don't see like a connection with each other as a team. I don't see them together, and maybe it's because they only come around every once in a while together. But still, you're in a national team. You're supposed to enjoy this moment together. This is a great step in your career, and yet there's no relationship with each other. There's still no real captain. I mean, Gustavo Gomez is there, but I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him in the field. I haven't seen him anywhere. He hasn't come out to speak about in the name of Paraguay. So to me, there needs to be, like I've always said, there needs to be a leading figure in the team, and we just don't see that. The relationship between all these players is not there. Maybe they don't want it, or maybe there was something going on there with Berizzo. Who knows? And maybe that he's out. It'll come in. It'll be better for the team. with the new possible manager that we might have, Guillermo, he does sound a little promising. You know, he's had a good background, short background. You know, he's a young coach, so maybe bringing in a young figure into the team would help them as well. And having new ideas. He probably does have teams that he coached before can, you know, are the big names: LA Galaxy, Boca Juniors, Lanús. I believe he was in Italy as well. So, you know, bringing in a newer coach brings in new, fresh ideas and a much better attitude. I believe that we desperately need.
Yeah, and
but the
going
players,
back,
the players are a little dizzy to Maria. I think, you know, coach over coach, frustration over frustration. I mean, it's not that easy for them either. That they're carrying that flag that hasn't been to the last 2 World Cups, and they actually feel, I think, directly guilty because of this situation. I mean, the coaches have come and gone, but the players, most of them have been the same. Gustavo Gomez, Almiron now, he's one of the leaders, and Anthony Silva, you can put him there too, because he's been in the process in these last couple of tries to go to the World Cup. I mean, there are a couple of players in that locker room that I think feel it more than others. And, you know, let's not forget that there was even players that didn't want to come to the national team, even for these 3 games. I mean, Lorenzo Melgarejo on the preview. I mean, another player that we can put on the list that said no to this national team because of the way it was being handled, because of the way maybe it was even that he was playing, because they know that maybe they were going on the trip and they wouldn't get any playing time. I mean, Berizzo wasn't handling everything right either. I mean, nothing was really going right. It wasn't going down the right way, Roberto. You could just see it coming.
no, absolutely. And going back to some of the players, obviously, you know, Maria brings up a good point. We didn't see the best of, and obviously this was a player that was subject to criticism throughout the entire 3 games. Miguel Almiron, someone who is playing in arguably the best league in the world, we didn't see anything from him. And he was obviously subject to criticism from everyone, from pundits, from people on Twitter, social media, everyone. He just did not show up. So, you know, it kind of feels as if though, what are we really seeing from this side? There is no identity. And that comes from the confusion and the just the frustration that people have on this team. Like you had mentioned, Fede, maybe some that don't want to be on there. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. We know that obviously Robert Harrison, the president of the FA, has been through multiple managers now. I think whoever comes in as his new replacement is going to be his 5th manager. So it's like in like 5 years or something. So it's almost as if though, what kind of consistency are we really going for? What kind of process are we really doing? And, you know, now at this stage of the qualifiers, many people have already lost that hope. People have already lost their hope even before these games have happened. And now it's just like, it's going to be so hard for them to qualify for the World Cup. It's almost as if, yeah, you're going for a 3rd straight failure of not qualifying. And like you had mentioned, Fed, there are players that have been a part of those qualifiers that feel the frustration more than anyone. And, you know, these guys want to make a World Cup. That's their dream. And, you know, the fact that they're not able to do so because of things that aren't going that way, I can completely understand why they feel that way. But, you know, there's someone that has to take the blame. Obviously, many people are going at Berizzo. Some people can blame the players as well for not showing up. So it's a mixture of everything. And that's kind of one of the reasons why we're at right now.
I think most fingers are actually pointing at Robert Harrison, the president of the FA, because he's actually been the one that's picked most of the coaches that haven't been able to make Paraguay go to the World Cup. I mean, he brought Chiqui Arce, who actually had 2 chances and couldn't do it. And he's brought these last Argentinian coaches also that haven't been able to do it. And apparently we're going to now to another Argentinian coach, and you know, that's also something that a lot of people discuss here. Why not a Paraguayan coach? Why not give it to somebody from here that knows the players, that know how they react, that knows how to handle a locker room, especially just give somebody a young a chance. You know, now that we saw that Berizzo with his style also colliding with the players, having problems getting to that possession style that he actually wanted, because that was also part of the election when they brought Berizzo. They didn't just bring Berizzo. I think they also brought a style of playing that Paraguay historically has not had, right? I mean, I think they actually tried to make that evolution that you're seeing in some countries, that you're seeing in some footballs, that, you know, you want the players to have more of the ball and not throw it up there that much. I mean, in Paraguay, we play that way. Historically, we've done that, you know, just throw the ball up there, have a good center forward that can handle it there. And obviously the talent around that, we have a lot of talent. That's why we have good players, but we kind of try to do something differently, I think, with Berizzo. And I think particularly it was just a waste of time. It was not working. And now with the picking of the new coach, we'll see which way they go, because I see some similarities with Schelotto because of the way he plays. He also likes to play a 4-3-3 mainly, and he's more of an attacking coach. You know, they all have their style. They're all different in some way. But what I'm just saying is that in that process that you were talking about, Roberto, when they brought Berizzo, they were also trying to bring in a style and put that here in the Paraguayan football, in the Paraguayan league. And I don't think that's just working for our game. That's why maybe we weren't even shooting at target lately, Ralph.
The problem they have as well is these styles to build up. We've seen other national teams do this. Let's take Spain as one example, Germany, but it takes you 10 years to really get that working, because what you have to do is you have to start from the youth teams. England is now seeing some of the benefit of this, but it comes from having done this in the youth teams, and their manager is one who managed the youth teams. Paraguay are trying to import this process, and they're not putting all the foundations there, because as far as I'm aware, Berizzo didn't bring anybody in for the youth teams. That's been managed separately. That's people that Harrison knows, like it was Gustavo Morínigo for a time, and now it's Aldo Bobadilla. So they don't really have that continuity. And that's what's more worrying now, is thinking about this process. If we're not trusting these players, the next generation, who are they? Where are they? It's not really happening. And partly that's the pandemic, because the pandemic stopped youth football in Paraguay for over a year. But generally it's because we haven't been trying to put that process in place. You also see even Argentina, Scaloni was working a lot with the youth teams, and now Argentina is seeing the benefits. So Paraguay maybe are going the wrong way around with this process of trying to import top down, where you need to really have someone to start and build them up. And that's where you would have seen, you know, I was very surprised that nobody mentioned Gustavo Morínigo's name. Nobody has mentioned him, but he actually knows all the players. He's done the youth teams in Paraguay. He's doing quite well with Coritiba, the top of the Brazilian second division. So that could have been an interesting person. The other one is Fernando Jubero at Guarani, because he actually started at Guarani in the youth teams. He's very well known for his kind of scouting ability and ability to bring players. He also plays a very exciting attacking style. So those were some names I could have thought. And now it looks like from the outside, at least from what I'm seeing, is that Harrison thinks, okay, I can't try and say I failed and we're not going to qualify. I have to bring in a big name or a name that excites, to try and show, no, we still got a chance to qualify with 6 games left. But it's a big gamble, right? Because you get it wrong in the next qualifiers, which, by the way, the squad has to be named this week, I believe, or it should be named this week. I guess Paraguay will ask for an extension, I suppose. But it's like you have to just hit the ground running and get it right, and beat Chile at home and Colombia away. So otherwise, it's, you know, then your whole gamble hasn't paid off. So you're almost bringing in a manager for 2 games just to see if they can do it. And if they can do the 2 games, then okay, we're still in with a bit of hope next year.
Yeah, and that's kind of one of the reasons. And obviously now going into the big name that probably will be the next manager of the national team. Obviously, there's no official confirmation at the time of recording, but all signs are pointing to Guillermo Schelotto, with his twin brother Gustavo being part of the new national team for Paraguay. And, a lot of people have felt divided about this. Doing some research, actually, Gustavo, the twin brother, the assistant of Guillermo, actually have some experience in Paraguay. He managed as an assistant for Gregorio Perez, a manager that has managed multiple teams in Paraguay. He was his assistant at Olimpia and Libertad. So he kind of has an idea of what's going on in the Paraguay game. Guillermo obviously has experience of dealing with Paraguayan players, a lot of them who are playing on this national team, like Gustavo Gomez and Miguel Miron. So he managed them at Lanús. So he has that kind of understanding of what's going on, and obviously multiple Paraguayans that played in Argentina in the past. So there is that sort of hope. But again, this is another manager who has no experience, have no understanding of Paraguayan football, similar to obviously what Berizzo kind of didn't have. Obviously, looking at history, if you can really look at the managers that have been to World Cups, you look at managers that have had at least history with the Paraguayan club game. Martino has had it. Aníbal Manuel Ruiz has had it when he went to the World Cup in 2006. Macarian in 2002. Capriani, a Brazilian, had history in Paraguay as well. So you look at this kind of trend, and I'm thinking to myself, they got to go for someone that's more based in there, and that's where people might mention Jubero, people have mentioned Costas, Rodrigo Lopez as well, kind of an interim based and really just close out what's going on in the process. Whatever happens, but at least go again for 2026. But no, the Paraguayan FA are really going all out, and they're going for the big names. And obviously Barros Schelotto is, and Fede, you had mentioned this, and I'll go to you on this one, it's obviously a name that has experience, obviously managed Boca, obviously before that managed Lanús, won the Sudamericana, did very well there, managed Boca Juniors, won some local titles there. Obviously the big, I guess you could say, stain on his managerial career is losing the final against River Plate at the Copa Libertadores final at the Bernabeu, but obviously, still has been successful there, managed LA Galaxy, wasn't successful there, obviously, but still managed the likes of Ibrahimovic and well, and now comes into this, his first ever national team gig, similar to what Berizzo was as well. And honestly, man, I mean, as much as, I obviously expect the best out of any manager that comes in to manage Paraguay.
You're
and,
not
obviously wants to be
convinced,
proven. No, I'm not. What am I going to do? Are we really going to really be convinced by someone that has never managed, has no understanding of the Paraguayan game aside from his brother? Like, what the hell? Like, I'm not convinced. And I'm sure a lot of us feel that way. And if you guys disagree, so be it. But for me personally, I'm not convinced whatsoever.
Yeah, he's actually been around the radar a couple of times before, right? I mean, I've actually heard his name go around several times, even when Ramon Diaz, I remember, came and became our coach back a couple of years ago. His name was around back then. And his career as a coach is kind of weird. I remember him even way back more in the 90s when I was little and watching football in Argentina growing back there. I mean, he was an icon. He was part of the football culture back there, especially when TV was hitting hard there in Boca. I mean, I remember he was taking pictures next to Maradona, who was retiring, and Maradona was practically giving him the space in the team. I mean, so he's kind of grew up against a big spotlight around him. I mean, he's a very, very big figure over there in Argentina, and he has the big scar that you said, that final in Madrid against River Plate. Obviously, he couldn't get over that easily. He had to leave Argentina after that. I mean, he tried to look for some peace in the United States, just like Tata Martino also did, I think, in Atlanta, the good life, the calm life, and maybe you get a title or two. I don't know which manager has done well in LA Galaxy. You guys can tell me, because that's a very big team. That's always a team that takes big stars, but I don't know how many titles they really gotten. And he's a manager that's hungry. I think he likes the thrill of what could happen with Paraguay. I mean, he could be a national hero if he takes us to this World Cup. and blew this away. I mean, nobody's expecting him to do it, and if he doesn't, it's not going to be his fault either. I mean, fingers are going to be pointing back at Britos, fingers are going to be pointing at the FA, and he's going to have a contract signed beyond those 6 games, because no coach was going to accept just coming to these 6 games. You know, everybody's going to want some more time to work. So the Schelotto twins are going to want that, and they're very different. Gustavo is calm. I've known Gustavo. I met him back in the days, 2010. I remember he was champion with Gregorio Perez. Gregorio Perez is like a father to them. He was their coach back in Argentina when they were just starting out. They've had really good coaches. I mean, Guillermo was managed by Bianchi back in the days, also one of the best coaches in the Argentinian league in the football itself. So, you know, they have quite a good background. You just don't know how well they're going to do, because they don't have the experience, and they never selected players for a national team. Gustavo might know a little bit more about the Paraguayan league, but there's no time to study. There's no time to get ready. Games are right now, and we need to win. Hopefully they come with that new energy. Hopefully they can bring up this locker room. Hopefully they can change everything around, because right now I'm not feeling the World Cup. I'm not feeling Qatar. I'm feeling like Halloween, like you guys are all dressed like.
And it's not like let's say he does get hired by Paraguay. It's not like he's gonna come and meet the team right away. He's gonna meet them when in the next round of qualifiers. So it'll be some time before he actually gets to work with them, and that's even more pressure for him, I believe.
Yeah, no, go ahead, Ralph.
I was looking at his record, and I too, when the name was thrown out there, I wasn't too convinced, because I was thinking, you know, what has Schelotto actually won apart from the Sudamericana with Lanús, which was a good Lanús team. I remember them 2013 Sudamericana. But then I looked at it and thought, well, he still took Boca, you know, he won the leagues with Boca. He took them to the Copa Libertadores final. With Galaxy, they actually got, I think, to the conference final the year that Zlatan was there. And then when Zlatan left, I remember they had a really bad season. But that's a difficult void to fill, I think, for any coach. So then I wondered, okay, maybe I should give them more of a chance. But similar to you guys, it's not that name that excites you immediately or convinces you. From their style and from what I know of them, they're not Paraguay are almost like a team that's in a relegation battle. Although they're not going to get relegated, but it's that same kind of thing. Like, you're on a downward curve and you need to just get points and really quickly, because there's no time. So you think of, like, in Argentinian terms, you think of like Caruso Lombardi as who would be your perfect coach. Or in England, we would always say Sam Allardyce, or somebody with that history. And I don't see them as having that character that they come in and immediately can lift the team. But I suppose they do command respect. They were very good players in their day. They have managed these top teams. They have won titles with Boca. And I think that's something for maybe our audience that aren't in Paraguay or know Paraguay as well. Argentinian football holds a lot of weight in Paraguay. It's something people grow up watching alongside the league. A lot of people have a club there. The players themselves, for them, have a lot of respect towards Argentinian coaches and the Argentinian league. So winning 2 titles with Boca and going to a Libertadores final, that's something that the players will look up to, even the ones that are in Europe at the moment. But I wonder if it's enough. I don't know if it's enough to really get that kind of pickup that they need immediately, because that's all they need. But let's see. I don't want to be pessimistic before they even set foot in Paraguay, but it's looking difficult, I think.
Yeah, and obviously being in the situation that Paraguay are in, obviously you have every right to feel pessimistic. It's normal, but at the same time, it's like he's coming in. You can't really criticize the guy if he hasn't had the time to do it. But, you know, there's obviously that criticism that comes as, like, you know, what does he really have that connection with Paraguay? Obviously, it's his first ever national team job, similar to Berizzo. It's like, what the hell is he going to do? We don't know. And obviously, you know, he needs to get on the ground running and quickly, because obviously in literally 3 weeks' time, Paraguay will have to play that game against Chile at home, obviously a direct rival. And, you know, obviously he has to get on the right foot. And maybe things will change. Obviously, I think time will tell to see what really was the main issue for Paraguay in this qualifier process. If it was really Berizzo, if it was really these players, or if it was really just what's been going on with the Paraguay team as a whole. Like you mentioned, they haven't been to also, I think the last three U20 World Cups. They've been to U17 World Cups, but that's a whole different ball game to the U20s. But that's the really case. And we'll see. I mean, obviously, we can only speak as much as we know, and obviously, nothing's been official as of yet. But if we're gonna really say that right here that the Barros Galotas will be the new managers of the Paraguay national team, I guess we just have to see what happens and go from there. I think that's really what's been going on. But ultimately, and as we kind of close this episode, on a really great chat, obviously, of what's been going on with the national team and, obviously what's looking ahead. I think ultimately we could say that Berizzo has really failed, unfortunately. And it was kind of sad because looking at Berizzo's experience, he was a winner at River Plates and Newell's, and he's had that kind of understanding. He was an assistant to Bielsa, actually, for the Chile national team when they made the World Cup in 2010. He's coached in Spain before, Celta, Sevilla. Many people had sort of a bit of optimism, and it just did not work out well. And now we have to see what happens with Barros Galota. But I agree, Fede. I think, I don't see, fingers crossed, Maria. I agree. Yeah, that's kind of what you have to feel. But, similar to what Fede has been saying, I don't see Qatar in my window at the moment. Maybe the Barros Galota can try to change something on this team, but it's going to happen quickly. And obviously, we'll be here at Guarani Vision speaking about what's been going on the national team. Obviously, with these qualifiers, qualifying or not Paraguay, we're still going to be talking about what's been going on with them. We'll also focus on what's been going on with the league action, obviously, as we get into crunch time there, and go from there. From another great year, guys. It's been great. Maybe Paraguay hasn't been that great, but at least we've been doing great so far. So another great episode, as always, of Guarani Vision. So to close it out here, for myself, Roberto Rojas, for Fede Perez, Maria Britos, and Ralph Hanna, thank you so much for listening in to this new episode. See you soon.